Okay, ma'am.
Yeah,
So,
you can start.
Uh, Once a new technology rolls over you, if you're not part of the steamroller, you're part of the road. A very good afternoon to one and all present here. It is my great honor to welcome you all for this guest lecture. I request all the participants to please mute for the ease of the program. Please mute yourselves. A very good afternoon to one and all present here. It is my great honor to welcome you all for this guest lecture on current trends in IT industry by the Department of Electronics, the Oxford College of Science. A hearty welcome to our speaker of the day, principals, vice principal, head of the departments, teachers, and my dear students. It is a great honor to introduce our speaker of the day, Mr. Sandeep Nath. It is a proud moment to tell that Mr. Sandeep Nath was a alumni of this college. He has completed his BSc EMCS in a college in the year 2005-2008. Sir has worked in Bangalore for about 7 years, and he has also worked in Europe for about 6 years. Mr. Sandeep Gupta has worked for Accenture, Mphasis, Tech Mahindra, Attractus, Mercers, and was also associated with many other organizations directly or indirectly. He is presently working as a cloud solution integration expert and sir resides in Paris, France. I welcome you, sir. Now, now I request Ms. Gayatri Sudhir, Vice Principal, Oxford College of Science, HOD, Department of Electronics, to address the gathering.
Thank you, Archana. Good afternoon, all the participants who have gathered here, the students from Oxford College of Science, all the computer science students and the final year BCA and post-graduation computer science students have joined here. And I have invited some other college computer science students also. And this is the thing which is required for us in the pandemic condition. So during the pandemic conditions, when last year we faced this time, it is the only technology, that is computer science and electronics, held our hand and we could make so many things. And we never thought of online classes, online assignment, and online guest lecture. Today, I'm very happy that one of my old students, that is Sandeep Nath, I'm presenting you. And I recollect Sandeep Nath as a student. When he was studying electronics, maths, computer science, our campus was in JP Nagar. And we used to have electronics class in a small room, but it was a very crowded classroom. And all the students were very active and they would actively participate in each and every activities of the department as well as the college. I remember Sandeep was very interested in electronics projects also, at the same time computer science also. And I could proudly say that Oxford College of Science placement cell had taken initiative, and those time also we were doing robust placement, and Sandeep Nath's first placement happened through Oxford College only. But with his dedication and commitment, and he had a talent to rise the occasion whenever he wanted, he updated himself. So today, he's one of our proud students, and he has come here to guide us. And during this pandemic time, we may not be having so many facilities. Like we are trying our best to give virtual labs and all the online classes. At the same time, I want all the students to get up and take some online classes, which will be helpful to getting them into the industry. So looking into this matter, I felt we need to know what is the current trends in IT industry, and I felt the right person to do that was Sandeep. So I welcome him on behalf of the Oxford College of Science Electronics Department. I know all my students and the student across Bangalore, will take his advice seriously and will look into your guidance. And students, if you students and all the participants, if you have any queries or question, you put it in the chat box. At the end of our guest lecture, Sandeep will be answering. So once again, over to you to Sandeep.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for such kind words. I mean, I was recollecting myself few old memories yesterday and even now when you were speaking about them. So thanks a lot for such an honor and inviting me to share my experience. I'm really honored for that. And welcome everyone and thanks for joining this session. I will start sharing my screen and let me know when you can see it. Ma'am, is my screen visible?
Yes.
It is visible.
Thank you. So again, thanks for joining everyone and welcome to this session about current trends in the IT industry. As said, I'm working few.
I request everybody to mute yourself. Prakash, can you mute everybody except Sandeep?
Thank you. Thanks, Prakash. So yes, I've been working in the IT industry after I finished my course in an EMCS since about 2008. So it's been about 13 years. I've been working on the IT industry. So this is a bit about myself. So yeah, I come from the northeastern state of Assam. As you already have heard, I've completed my EMCS from Oxford College in 2008. Since then, I have been professionally associated with many companies. Have traveled and worked in different locations in India and in Europe. Um, so currently, I live in Paris. So basically, I moved here in 2017 for a company called Mercer, which is associated with their partner company Everbee. So this is where I am currently working. I speak a few languages. I said I speak a bit of Kannada too because I try to learn, but I don't think that I learned that enough. But at least I know a few words, so that's why I put it here. Yeah, I love traveling. I do cycling regularly, and yeah, I love cooking as well. So that's about myself. And here I just try to give a small snapshot of my career. So, I mean, I don't think I have managed to put everything here, but this is the snapshot of companies or organizations with whom I have been working directly or indirectly as a customer or as a partner or as a software vendor or name it anything. So it was a great, interesting learning experience all these years working with different technology and non-technology companies. I managed to learn a lot, and that's what I would like to start sharing with you guys, because I think this is very important to also understand the background of your work more as equally as the work that you do, because that is quite important to understand what you actually do. So yeah, I will try to share my experience and take your questions if you have any. This is my LinkedIn profile. If you would like to connect with me at some point now or in the future, and if you have any questions or needs any suggestions, you're always welcome. So you can look me up in the LinkedIn, and this is how my profile should look like. um, so a bit of introduction to the agenda. So as you might have seen my profile, so I have mostly worked in the most of my career I have worked in the cloud computing domain. So basically cloud computing is again, I'll talk about it in a minute, but it's the let's say mostly emerging topic in the IT industry. There is a big shift going on from the, let's say, pre-cloud era IT industry to the cloud era. There are also various flavors of cloud. I'll be talking also about a bit. Uh, so there are different. So after about cloud. So obviously, when we talk about any technology, we also have to talk about where exactly it applies, or which industry this kind of technologies are being used in, and what are the different operational areas or modules where they apply in. So yeah, so these are the few things that I would like to touch upon. Um, I might not be able to go into too much technical details about all the topics, but you are always welcome to ask me a question if you have interest to know more about them, and I'll be happy to help you or explain. Different types of cloud services, comparison between different cloud services, um, and then something about cloud security, which is very important, data integration and automation, and bit about project management topic, and then finally about the, let's say, the skills or career path that you might see these days that are quite in demand in the IT industry. So this is shortly the agenda that I would like to touch upon today. So the first question is, what is cloud computing? Um, so basically, it's a concept because as such, there is no specific, let's say, programming language or any specific protocol as such to say this is cloud computing. It's basically a concept. And there are different kinds of cloud computing that exist. Uh, if I have to go back to the history, cloud computing existed since maybe even as early as 2000 or even before, since the internet was invented and it started was being used. um, for example, I can remember my career when I started in 2008. I hardly remember using internet whole day. Basically, the only reason I used to use internet was to check emails or maybe get into some social networking sites, or perhaps search something on Google, or that's it. That was, let's say, not too much heavily involved with the internet. But today, I can imagine a single day, basically not few hours, the whole day without using internet, because not just my personal need, even for professional needs, we would need internet. One very good example is that we are talking on Zoom today, or we are interacting with each other on Zoom. It's actually a part of cloud architecture, because what we are doing right now is essentially we are using the conferencing service which is shared across internet, right? So it's very simplistic way to put it in perspective that cloud is basically of, over internet. So as you can see, there are a couple of types of cloud model. There is public cloud and there is private cloud. And then there is a third kind of model, which is a combination of two. So basically, what is public cloud? So public cloud is something that is open to, it's more like a shared resource. So basically, if I have to use, let's say you are using Gmail, for example, you're using it over the internet, and obviously there are a million other users who are using Gmail as well. So it's not just this service, even though it's secure to your particular user, but it's also the same shared service is being used by other users as well. So it's not really private, although it's secured. I mean, of course, your email, your personal account won't be visible to others, but it's still a public cloud because the resources are shared among many users in public. Private cloud, on the other hand, is more restrictive in nature. It's, uh, I mean, it is developed or maintained by a particular organization, or let's say a particular set of for particular set of users only, and it's not visible or open to the whole world, or let's say to the everyone who have, would like to access it. It's only for a specific company or a specific organization or set of users. And it can be accessed through certain protocols, like you are working in an organization and you have to access certain applications. um, you want to log into those applications, you can still do it over the internet, but only if you're in the network of the company. Okay, so it's more like internal cloud, but it's still cloud, and there are more things I would like to explain a bit later. And hybrid solution is something that is a combination of the two. So basically, some part of applications are on cloud, public cloud. So for example, if you think of a company who uses, um, let's say, email services, so obviously Microsoft Office 365 is one of very good example, or even Gmail, for example. Many companies use Gmail as their emailing services. So that could be on public cloud. And there are certain other solutions, like they have some particular application that they want to access only from company network. So that is, let's say, part of the private cloud. So this model is quite popular, and then of course this is also quite popular model. Um, uh, the the main difference between these three is that between these two, I would say, basically private and public, is that public is quite it's more like you just pay for what you use. Okay, for example, let's take a very day-to-day example. If you want to hire an auto, like you want to go somewhere and you want to take an auto, you wouldn't think about buying the auto, right? Or you'd not think about um, filling the gas or petrol for the car that you want to hire just to go from one place to another. This is a very good example of public cloud. Okay, it's a public service. All you are doing is hiring it for a specific amount of time, or for a specific service. Whereas private cloud is something that is very specific to your need. For example, you buy a car, and the car is yours. You don't you I mean, if you want to go somewhere, your car can take you, but also you can you don't have to take care of the car's maintenance, car any other services that you need. You have a provider who helps you to do that, right? You don't have to do it yourself. So this is quite an analogy that you can think of about private and public cloud. um, and of course, as Mem was saying rightly earlier, that with cloud, basically we are now able to access and work from home, or study from home, with the help of a lot of applications, which is mainly cloud based. Because when we talk about cloud based, it's actually internet based, so you don't have to install anything. You don't have to know a particular application to really use it. It's very intuitive, and you can just either access it online or install the very interface that you can use it to do it online, right? So it's very true that today cloud is very much on demand, and especially with organizations, to keep the business continuity and to keep the because if you think about um, having your in your organization, you are dependent on a lot of things which is installed on your machine, or something is on premise. You have a lot of dependency, right? For example, if I were working in a company where um, I can only work from the company's computer, then I would need to go there, right, physically. But thanks to cloud, now I can access to that same computer remotely. So yeah, that's cloud computing. Now I would like to have a short quiz. If people have here have phone with the QR code scanner, could you please scan the code on the screen? So if you scan it, it should on your phone it should open up with a page that you can enter your name. And if you enter your name, then it will come up here. So right, thanks. And if someone is not able to join, don't worry. It's I mean, you are not missing on anything. I can you know if you want to, like, I can show that to you separately or later. It's just for some participation that I try to put this kind of small quizzes here, but it's not you won't miss out on anything. So I'll share everything with you later if you want. So don't worry. And while people enter their names, I think this is also a very good example of again cloud. What is happening right now is people are entering their names or something on their phones, and it's automatically appearing on my slide. Is because there is so the application that does it automatically talks between my presentation and the people's phone or laptop or whatever it is. It can get the data real time. So this is a very good example of integration that I'll talk about in a few minutes. So is that all, or is anyone else trying to enter? Okay, I'll give it 1 more minute maybe. You can just enter your first name. That's fine. You can just um, even enter your um, any other name than avatar name, for example, just to. So I'll move to the next screen in 10 seconds. So if anyone else would like to enter, um, they're welcome. Okay, so even if you enter now, it's fine. So now you should have a question appearing on your phone, people who have entered their names. Just choose the right answer and click on send. Okay, I will give 10 more seconds and then we'll move on to the next one. Okay, so what is cloud computing? It's a computing concept. 95% of them said, 5% said programming language. Actually, it's a computing concept. So that's the correct answer. People who have either answered, so congrats, Supraj. So um, you are on the top. So it's as you might have seen, this is not a very difficult question, but it's just to make you think and stay engaged. So thanks for your answers. The next one, you should see another one. What are the different models of cloud computing? Okay, I have received 23 response, 25. Create. Okay, I'll give 10 more seconds and then we'll move on. Right, so what are the different models of cloud computing? 74% said private, public, and hybrid. 16% said private and public. 6% said simple and private. So let's see. Yes, 74% of them are correct. So second, Supraj, congrats. Okay, so moving on. So yeah, as I was saying in the starting of the session, cloud solutions for all. So basically, all operating verticals. So when I say operating verticals, it's like business process and business operations that exist in and for every organization, small, big, or like super large organizations. At least are these few common operating verticals that exist for every company, and hence for each of those verticals or processes, you need a software to maintain them, right? And here I have put some logos, some example software companies. I work for this application called Workday. And this is cloud. You must have always heard about SAP, Oracle, etc. These were before on-premise, like non-cloud solution, but now they are also on cloud, obviously, because that's the new, let's say, evolving technology. So these are the few common operations that exist for every organization, every kind of organizations, especially accounting and finance. That's essential for any company. That should exist. The accounting for a company, budgeting, general ledger, payments to their companies, financial accounting, etc. Then there exists a very key pillar or a key process in every company, which is human resources. Your BBM or MBA colleagues would know more about this, but I would also suggest that you keep some basic knowledge about those kind of concepts, even from your, let's say, while you'll be about to start your work or your first company, because maybe you won't for example, now you don't think about it much. Maybe it's mainly for management students, But for example, myself, I never learned human resources, right? Because I was a computer science student. But after a few years, I started to see then I have started to work on different things like accounting, finance, or human resources, technical side, the software side of it. But obviously, it you are doing something for that particular operation, and when you do something for a particular operation, it's better that you know the business side of it as well, because that can give you and make you a better, I don't know, a developer or even a better consultant. Okay, so these are very interesting points that, I mean, you don't have to learn it, let's say, to be to pursue your career there, but you can have some understanding what is a payroll of a company, what is human resources, what does it mean in terms of a company. So this is my area of expertise, this too, mainly human resources, because I've been working on this particular domain since about 8 to 9 years, a bit about also on accounting and finance, um, customer relationship management, sales and marketing, supply chain management, logistics. So these are, as I said, like depending on again organization type, these are very important. Let's say functional, operational, operating verticals that exist in a company, and here these are very known companies, or let's say software vendors or software companies that make them happen. So they have, let's say, a process or a product for each of those kind of operations. For example, if I talk about my area of expertise, Workday, so they have a very strong human resources product, which is like a competitor. It's a competition with SAP, because SAP, as you might also know, is a very known global market player. So um, also, it's good to know what do they do, like what is the product they do, and what is it used for example. So doing coding or understanding the programming world is surely your area of expertise, most of you, but also it's very good to understand the business side of it, to understand what are you writing in the code. Why are you writing this particular piece of code that will be, I mean, what will it achieve in the end, right? I've seen some examples in companies where people, I mean, colleagues have written a big, I mean, they're very good in technical, no doubt about it. They have written big codes, big lines of codes. When I started my career, I have seen humongous mainframe codes of 50,000 lines of codes, which was very hard to maintain for many years. But then people who have written back then, they perhaps didn't have this vision that what this company does as his operation, as their operation. So where the need of the application will go in the future, right? So those things are very important to keep in mind while you do the coding or do the programming, because that is, in the end, that is what will define what you do. Okay, more or less. Um, so this is the operating verticals. Now, as I was just talking about the industries, right? So all these operating verticals can be or might be applied for most of the industry types. Okay, most or all maybe. At least here in this, I mean, there are many other industries that I couldn't name here, of course, but most of the industries will have these operations in all of their companies, right? So this is their basic operation: accounting, finance, human resources. They have to pay people, so they will have to have a payroll. They have to manage people's, manage people, hire employees. They have to give promotion to the employees. So for those things, they have to manage human resources. And similarly for other things also. Now, all these things applies for each industry. Pharmaceuticals, for example. I mean, today I know that, for example, why am I showing this to you? Because, for example, today I know that we are facing COVID crisis, and most of the pharmaceutical companies are busy, really busy, pharmaceutical and manufacturing companies. What they're doing is they're probably getting a lot of demand from the market to produce vaccines, to produce a lot of orders to be dispatched to many governmental or private organizations. So that comes under logistics, okay, or supply chain management. Now, I have never worked on those areas much, but I know that technologically speaking, it won't be very different than what I do in human resources. But functionally speaking, this is what is today very busy area, right, for pharmaceuticals, because they would have to do the maintain the supply chain. They have to do the logistics for the vaccines and those kind of things. So these are different industries, as you can see. uh, Manufacturing, information technology, consulting services. You might recognize some of the names, you might not recognize some of them. Banking and financial, energy, construction, and so on. So I have worked for most of the industries. Basically, my role is to do more or less the same role to implement a solution for their HR or finance, for example, right? But in the end, I mean, they have a core operation. Like pharmaceuticals will not, their work will be to do research and development and develop their new pharmaceutical products and healthcare products. That is their core business, right? But that for that they might use other softwares or applications. Okay. Same with manufacturing. I mean, food manufacturing or car manufacturing, they use other technologies for that, which might not be software exactly. It might be a bit of hardware based application, where electronics related application also. But their backbone will be always this, like to run an organization, they will always have to use this. So sorry, I am talking a bit more about the industrial overview, but I thought that was quite interesting or important for you to understand the different parts of it. Most of you might already know this, but I still wanted to share that this is something that is very important for you to understand what you do and for what are you developing a program or doing some development. Sorry. So we have a small poll. um, can you scan it just to see if you are if you have managed to let's say get away and get the concept of different operations in a company. Okay, so I'll give 10 more seconds. Okay, so what are the most common operational verticals in any industry, right? So 59% said human resources, 37% said finance, CRM, project management, accounting. Yeah, let's see. So sorry, what happened? Oh, sorry. Okay. No, that's fine. So it was actually not a quiz, it was a poll. So in fact, sorry about that. In fact, all of the answers are correct except project management, because project management is really very open concept, because it can be in anywhere, right? It doesn't just need to be in a operation. Even it can be in their core business, or even for a small project, they can use project management. But human resources, finance, accounting, and CRM, these are very core concepts among others, as you might have seen in the other slide, previous slide. Okay, so moving on. Now, what are the different, let's say, types of cloud? Now, first we saw different models, which is private and public cloud and hybrid cloud. Now we'll see what are the different services offered, kinds of services in cloud, right? So there are three kinds mostly, primarily, if you want to segregate them: software as a service, or SaaS, platform as a service, or PaaS, or infrastructure as a service, IaaS. Now, as a service is a very important concept. As I just gave a small example earlier, if you would like to, I don't know, hire an auto, you'd not have to invest in the auto. You just have to hire him for a particular service, that is to travel from one place to another. Similarly, let's say you would like to, I think a better example would be to purchase an apartment, right? Now, when you purchase an apartment, you don't really invest in building the apartment, or the raw materials to build the apartment, or even you know to tell the engineer, okay, I would like to have the wall in a different way, or the window in a different way. How they have developed or built the apartment, this is how they deliver it to you. And all you can do is, after you buy the apartment, or you have occupied the apartment, you can put furnitures, you can install few things here and there as per your need, right? But only in that apartment. So it's a similar concept for SaaS, because here you are asking the provider to give you a service, and you don't have to buy anything particularly or manage anything particularly. All you have to do is use the service, and based on the license that you buy, you use the service. So that is software as a service. Platform as a service is a bit more management involved by you or as an organization. Um, you might you, so the application you might be able to manage yourself. Like you might still be able to manage, let's say, the during the build of the apartment, you might be able to say, okay, the walls should be looking like this, or the 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 bedroom should not be here, it should be somewhere a bit differently. Those things you can design by yourself. But still, the raw materials, or the basic the basic materials that is needed to build, you will not be taking ownership of that. Okay. um, it's a very high level example. I'll give some more examples in few minutes. And infrastructure as a service is that most of the things you'll take the ownership. Like you'll here is, as you see, server as that is as a service, or storage as a service. So basically, um, you will manage the platform, you will manage the application by yourself, but only you will not be purchasing or installing networking or server in your company. So those will be service based. So you'll not be buying everything by yourself, you'll use them as a service. So primarily there are these three kinds of services available on cloud computing, and each has their own career path also. So I'll just explain it in a bit, depending on what is your interest. If you are interested more in application development, and you are good at it, then you are obviously you can go to platform as a service, because that is where you manage the application or build the application. And you know if you are more interested in networking, server programming, networking, etc., you can go towards IaaS, infrastructure as a service. And if you are more you are good at understanding the business concepts, or you're very good in communication, and you'd like to be more um, you'd like to talk to end customers, and you'd like to do minimum, let's say, development work, but at the same time you can configure and build a solution which does not need too much, let's say, coding, or limited amount of coding, but needs a good understanding of business processes. Then this is a very good career path for you. I basically fall between these two. I mean, software as a service is the product that I work for, is a software as a service product, but it also needs some application development and management. So this is where I fall between these two. But you can find out more interesting things about on these three domains. Mhm. So as I was saying, the main differentiator are that you manage minimum things. For example, here, as you see in IAS, you only you manage most of the things as um, the organization would not like to manage. For example, if I come back again to this one, so on premise is you manage everything, right? There is nothing on the cloud, so others are not managing anything. Infrastructure as a service is more like you manage most of the hardware stuff. Only few things others manage. Platform as a service is I think I have to the video is in loop. Platform as a service is that you still manage few things. uh, so yeah, infrastructure as a service is you manage middleware, application data, etc. Platform as a service is you manage application and data only. Everything else is on cloud. Okay. And software as a service is everything on the cloud. Okay, so you don't manage anything on premise on your side on company. So that's the concept, basically the differences of the different concepts, because it's important to understand that when we are on cloud, there are a lot of things which is kind of you don't have, for example, for SaaS, you don't have control on many things, because let's say you are accessing an application on a website and you'd like to change the color or the, I don't know, the structure of the page, etc. For SaaS, 99% of the case you can't do that. It's the provider who will have to do that. So before, in the on-premise era, customer will say, okay, I need this form a bit on the right side with this color, etc. It is easy to do because company is managing it themselves. But now with SaaS, you cannot do that automatically. You have to ask the provider to do it. But what is the advantage of that? The advantage of that is, first of all, it's on cloud. So I mean, there is no server to manage, no database to manage. Only thing is, it's just like your email, right? You know that your email is never down. I mean, 99.99% of your time is accessible. Similarly, their applications are accessible. They're never, let's say, out of, you know, not reachable or things like that. So this is the main advantage of cloud model. They are mostly accessible. When you have on-premise, you always have the responsibility to make sure that those are, I mean, there are no issues, and you are able to perform all the operations every time. There is no downtime. So those kind of headache, let's say, is taken care by the service provider or the cloud provider. So business can focus on their own core area of work without worrying much about maintaining the IT itself, right? The IT is a bit lightweight with the cloud. Okay. So yeah, so few examples about different types of cloud platform services. So yeah, as I told you already, I'm working on this product, Workday, but there are many other product which is cloud-based. Even SAP I could put here because it's also now on cloud. So these are very few examples. Uh, these are either business applications or conferencing applications or anything you name it, like not necessarily it has to only be business application. Anything that you can use to perform business operations or even educational uh, applications that exist, and a lot of them today are any of those mostly SaaS based applications, right? Um, Platform as a service. So I have again platform as a service and IaaS. I have not really worked on these areas that much, but I mean I have some basic high level overview of different kind of products. Then, as you can see here, Amazon Web Services, obviously it's one of the very um, heavily used services. I guess even you can use that for IaaS also, but yeah, Microsoft Azure is one of the market leaders for platform as a service. So if you go to Microsoft website and try to find out what is it, you can easily see a lot of things, a lot of learnings, and I would recommend to try to know a bit more about these three service types of cloud, and especially Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. These are the few three among others are like the market leaders of this kind of services. Normally or naturally, because since many years companies are using Microsoft, right? When you think about writing something, you automatically open a Microsoft Word document or PowerPoint, as I am also doing right now. So that is the dependency that many companies have, at least with Microsoft products. I know that, for example, Amazon or Google has entered the game a bit later, but still they are the market leaders as well. But Microsoft is very, very strongly related to this um, cloud services. Okay, so you can learn a lot about them. IaaS, so these are few things that like as I was mentioning earlier, database as a service or server as a service. You don't install a server, you use the server online as a service based, meter based, and pay as you go, right? You don't pay for the installation or maintenance. You just pay for the service that you use. So these are very interesting products if you'd like to explore more about them. Okay. Um, okay. Now a small quiz again. If you would like to open your mobile, um, and if you see, I don't know if you have your earlier page available. If not, you can scan it again. Let me see if I can. Okay. Not sure why the names are not here, but that's fine. Okay. So I think we have about 38 responses. So let's move to the question. So what are the three main kinds of cloud services? Okay, I have 11 responses. We'll give 10 more seconds and then we'll move on. Okay, so what are the three main kind of cloud services? 38% say server as a service. So basically, we have multiple answers as correct. So I don't think it's a good picture to say the percentage, but let's see the correct answers. So these are the correct answer, which was most of the responses. So that's good. Okay, well done, Supraj. Okay, so the next slide. This is a small comparison of the traditional previous traditional IT landscape or architecture and the evolving architecture of cloud. So basically, when I started my career, obviously cloud was not at all in the picture. I mean, of course, there's you can say a bit of private cloud kind of architecture was existing because obviously every company has their own network, intranet, right? So private cloud is kind of an extension or like a slightly you can relate it to that, but there was no cloud concept as such. So let's say previously there were a lot of applications that existed in the company, and there is a new need of a new application to be implemented for some business purpose. So what needed to be done was they had to implement the first day you have to build an application yourself, like really build an application with a lot of coding. You have to link either create a database or link it to an existing database to be able to pull the data and transaction from, or get the data and store the data into. And then you have to build links to different other applications integration, because um, applications cannot be operating individually. They have to sometime talk to each other. So you had to build a link to each of them separately, because there was no centralized way to communicate between applications. And then you had to also build connections and settings and do a lot of technical work and implement internet services and server connections to database and all those kind of settings and configurations. As you can imagine, just to implement one application, new application into the architecture, you had to spend a lot of time doing a lot of additional activities, that is just to make your application live in the ecosystem. And then as you can see on the top, there are people, I mean, if you want, if you as an employee or an HR or admin would like to access these applications, then you'd have to have separate login to each of those applications. And then you have to set up a similar setup into another application, and people would be able to log in separately. So it seemed a lot of work, and it's a lot of people who have to work on teams to make that happen, just to implement one application. So now here we are talking about months or even a year. Okay, this is a simplistic view, but if I go into complex details about it, it will be about a year's project or even more. On the right side, on the other hand, is a cloud model, and we already have implemented few cloud applications in the architecture. And there is a enterprise service bus, or ESB, or you can call it middleware, which can route or communicate applications, make communications easier between applications, irrespective of the platform, irrespective of what language they are written in, or in what platform they're written, because they are independent and they are on the cloud, right? So you don't manage anything on premise. And then you want to implement as organization a new application. So what happens is you just have to build connection between the application and the middleware, because the middleware will make sure that the remaining part of the communication is established. Okay, so again, it's a very simplistic approach. And then the other point that you need to make sure is to uh, So sorry, this is application 5. So you have to do some settings changed on this layer so that the user can access this application as well. Now, I'll talk about SSO in few coming slides, but this is actually single sign-on. So what is a single sign-on? As you can see here, the user will have to log in into separate applications separately, right? They don't have an opportunity to log in into one place and that will be taken care of. Here in cloud model, they can log into one single web page, let's say identity provider page, and that will give them access to each of those applications. So they don't have to remember a password for individually for each application. They don't have to connect or remember okay, what was the what is the URL of a particular application or what is the address of a particular application. All they will have to do is connect to this particular layer and that's it, and that will give them access to each of those applications. So that's the game changer of cloud architecture. It takes away a lot of work and a lot of effort from the organization enterprise perspective and makes it easier to maintain and implement application. Yeah. So as I was talking about SSO before, and it's rightly so that security is very critical for cloud solutions because most of the time we see public cloud, right? Even though public cloud is very, it's very well secured nowadays. We have a lot of security protocols that has been invented and is very, very strong, but still there is a risk of a security breach, right? So security is very essential and very critical for cloud implementation, and that's why on one hand you have cloud applications, but on the other side you have to take care of the security. Uh, Anyone has any question? Sorry. Okay. So that's very important. So authentication. So I'll just talk about authentication and authorization, SSO, and there is a specific, let's say, a schema or protocol that is single assertion markup language, which is used for SSO establishment. And then there is, I'll touch upon the mobile device management and what is it about. But before moving on, I would like to just take a pause and ask if anyone has any questions, or do we take it in the end of the session?
We'll take at the end of the session. You can continue.
Okay, ma'am, thanks. So still, if anyone has any question, don't hesitate to type it on the chat or keep it with you so that
வீட்டுக்கு வந்துட்டு இருக்காங்களா? சரவணே ரிப்போர்ட் வாங்க, காசு வாங்க இங்க வந்துட்டு இருக்காங்க. வீட்டுக்கு காசு வாங்க இங்க வந்துட்டு இருக்காங்க. சரவண நீ தானே சொன்ன?
ஆமா, அவன் வந்து அப்படியே kindly mute yourself.
Okay, thanks. So now I'll move on to the first so security related topic, as it is quite critical. So there are two aspects of to start with on security. Authentication and authorization. So what is authentication? And what are the types of authentication? Now this could be a whole different field of study and a career, because I myself I have some knowledge about this, but I have not extensively worked on this area. So I just wanted to point that out, that this could be quite interesting area to work, which will be very different than working for a particular industry or a particular business operation, because I started to speak mostly from the commercial and business perspective, but this could be area of let's say study or research which will be purely academical, or let's say more into the more into research and development kind of area as well. So there are three kinds of authentication, or I don't know if there could be more in the future, but for now, is something that you acknowledge. So, for example, something that you know, right? So, if you log into a website, you know that you have a password or a PIN or security questions that you have to answer to gain access to the website or to the application, right? That is one kind of authentication. That is something that you have, something that you possess, right? For example, mobile phone or a smartwatch. So often when I started my career back then, it was a token that used to be given to employees which will keep changing the number every minute or every 2 minutes. And that keeps you secure so that you don't have to enter your password every time. uh, for the first login, you have to give your password and then you have to enter your token that keeps changing. So those have evolved today quite rapidly. So now you can even just you know use a code, or it can even come to your email address or phone as a message, as you might have seen in some cases when you log into banking websites, right? Or want to do transaction, and then it asks for an OTP. And then there is inherence. So basically, that's what you are, right? So it's something that you possess, but it's yourself, right? Like biometric. We can predict facial recognition or even voice command or things like that. For example, I know that in the recent iPhones, if I would like to, if someone else would like to give a voice command to my phone, it doesn't work because it doesn't recognize that it's me. Okay. So these are the three main types of authentication. And as you can see, like these are the different names. Basically, it's the same thing. It's password-based authentication, multi-factor authentication. So multi-factor authentication is if you log into a website and then it asks for a second factor, which is the OTP, or it asks to enter some other piece of the information. Combining both of them, it will actually authenticate you. Certificate-based authentication is the SSO that I talked about. So basically, here you don't neither you put a biometric nor you put any code. Only thing is you put a password, and that password generates a signature for you. Signature, it's an electronic signature for you, and I'll show you an example in a bit. And that stores in the system, and that is exchanged between one system and another, and that is like unique for you. So you don't have to log in with your password again for different applications once you have logged in. So what happens is that saves you from security breaches. If you wanted to copy paste or type your password in another application repeatedly, that is prone to attack. And if you log into one identity platform, that takes care of that authentication. You don't have to worry about which application you have to log into. That IDP takes care of it. So that is certificate-based authentication. And biometric and token you already understood. I hope that this is kind of authentication that exists. Even in our professional world, there is a very there is always a confusion about what is authentication and what is authorization, right? These are two very different things in terms of from the security perspective. Okay, authentication is something that is recognizing you as you, right? If you are asking to log in somewhere, or you want to enter to a building, you are only given access if you are the person that you say you are, right? And that is what authentication is. Authorization, on the other hand, it gives you authority or authorization to perform certain actions after you get the access. So the first step is authentication, but after getting the authentication, what you do is defined by the authorization. Okay. So these are two very interesting topic, and this comes under security, IT, let's say security part of the cloud computing, and it's a very wide or vast topic to cover. I don't think I have managed to cover even 0.01%, but at least I try to give a high level understanding of that. Um, let's say I'll give an example of the difference of I mean what is SSO, for example, right? Now, let's say you are you want to access. So these are different buildings. Okay, this is just an analogy to understand. So for each building, you consider that these are as an application. So this is Workday application, this is SAP, and so on. So let's say you have authorization to access only Workday and ServiceNow. These are two different applications. Okay, quite quite market leader today. Anyway, so you'd like to access them. So SSO, what SSO does, single sign-on, it first authenticate yourself by the identity provider. So if you would like to access those buildings, you'd have to first go to the security office. Okay, and the security office is actually identity provider. You cannot go to that and get into the building right away, right? You have to go to the security office, and that's where they will give you a badge or an ID card, which will work into those buildings. Okay, so you go there, and then based on those authentication protocols that we just discussed, it will verify that it's really you, and then you will be given an ID card, which is the access by SSO. Okay, and that's it. You don't have to go through the same process again in this building or in this building. Okay, because you already go through SSO, and as you remember, the concept of SSO is single sign-on. You don't have to sign on or log in every time. Now you come to this building, and this is authorized. Now we are in authorization. Now you are authorized to enter this building or do some actions there, so you can enter. But let's say you try to get into this, you might be able to get into this. Okay, that's the difference between authentication and authorization. You might be able to get into this building also, but you won't be able to do anything afterwards. Like you can't see anything. Everything will be blank to you. Okay, you will just get into an empty building for you. But the same, if someone else with authorization to this building comes, he or she can see a lot of things. Okay, so that's a big difference between authorization and authentication. Again, if you go to this one, so you can access the building. So that's the concept of SSO, single sign-on, authorization and authentication, and SAML. SAML is a language that talks between the identity provider and the service providers. This is what carries your certificate, because once you have logged into identity provider, it creates a auto-generated certificate which exchanged between the service providers, so they know that you are the right person to access them. Okay. so this is this is an example. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I would not be going into too much technical details because yeah, to do a demo, it will take some time for me to really explain things. So I'll just like to keep it on a high level. So SAML is an XML language, which is XML based language, which is used to carry the information of your login. Okay, and store along with it different other aspects, like which building you would want to access to or which application you would like to access to. And this is the request that the identity provider sends to the service provider, that is this ones, and they in turn send a response, okay, saying, okay, he or she is authorized or he should be given access to this. this building with all the tokens and all the certificate information that is important for the identity provider to give him finally the access. Okay, so that is what SAML is all about. I'm making it very simple, but I'm sure if you are more curious, you can go into the information, and I'm happy to take questions later and let you know more about this. Okay, now moving a bit faster. Mobile device management. So it's on a very high level. It's touches upon the security topic as well, because you know that some companies would like to. Obviously, these days, especially all companies are giving laptops or mobile phones from the company, especially because of the COVID. You have to work from home or remotely. How do they protect their data? How do they make sure that obviously you are trusted, but then your device will have to be also protected, and your from any other accidental data leaks or any other um, um, hacking or anything as such, because company data is confidential and it shouldn't be shared or you know leaked outside. So this is one of the tool that companies use to maintain not just mobile. Basically mobile is mobile phone, but also the computer laptops, because that's also a mobile device as such, to maintain the security policies, the protection of the data. Like for example, I have a work phone or a work laptop. I cannot install everything. Sorry, I am only allowed to install um, things that companies allows in their policy. So be it laptops installed application, or be it online application, uh, everything. I mean, you can only access few websites, and you cannot access all the websites where there is a risk of virus getting downloaded and or malwares, etc. So this is the tool, and there are many tools. The market leader is Microsoft Intune. I'm giving some specific examples, but it doesn't mean this is the only tool that you can use. Uh, it manages all those policies, all those controls in your devices remotely. Okay, so yeah, if I'm using an iPhone from a company and I would like to install, I don't know, some games, I cannot do that because company says it's not in their policy. Okay, so this is very interesting area of work as well, because you work with the security team of the company, and security is very essential and a very critical topic of a company, and they invest heavily in security. So that means you have a lot of if you're good at uh, the cloud applications, and if you're good with security concepts, then you have a very good, let's say, career opportunity in this area as well. Okay. So now a quick quiz again. I will try to make it faster this time. So if you can scan the code again, I'll try to do it again. Okay, I think it's mostly all of you have joined, so that's why it shows. Yeah, so it should have the same page on your mobile phones when you did it last time. So I'll move on to the question. So what are the key factors of authentication? Okay, so I'll move on 10 seconds. We have 11 responses, I think. Okay, so what are the key factors of authentication? So it's all actually a multiple choice question, but what you are, 92%, what you know, and what you have. So these are the main 3 points, and absolutely right. Those are the right answers. Okay, great. Congrats, Pile. Okay, so I think, yeah, that's it. Sorry. Um, so this is integration of. So this is very the one of the hot topics or key demand in the IT industry is that when you install a new application, because every company have a lot of applications installed already or implemented already, and you want to implement something new, you have to. That's the main challenge, and this is the kind of role that I usually do now. Is that to understand the company's need, what they want to implement first of all, and how does it impact other applications, right? So usually customers will just give me something like a draft or a rough drawing, or just some concept that okay, this application is talking to each other, they are connected to data base or data warehouse and things like that, right? It's very easy to understand, right? So now you have to actually implement this into this, right? So to make sure that you apply their logic or their requirement into a meaningful way and convert it into a well-established and well-connected integration between applications. So that's one of the very big challenge, and as well as a career opportunity for I think most of you could be, because I have seen most of my colleagues who have been working are working in the integration areas. Obviously, there are other areas, but this is one of the key, let's say, scope. You have to let the applications speak to each other, if I can say that in a very simple language. And obviously it's quite challenging because some applications understand one language, and some applications are built in a very different way than the other. So, and some application scope is smaller than the other application. So to find the common grounds and to find a way to transform the way to communicate between integration application is and to automate the process. This is the mostly the key demand today, right? um, um, this is something that I will explain later. So for example, I would like to share a project experience that I had recently. I mean, obviously there have been many projects similarly, but one of the project experience might give you a bit of idea what I did recently, or I usually do. Or so basically the company which wanted to implement Workday, as I said, Workday is the cloud application for HR and payroll, etc. And they had this legacy on-premise application, like they build themselves, the customers build themselves, and they would like to now go to cloud, right? Now, obviously, not everything or not all applications they used were in cloud, because some of them were built by themselves. Some people are even maintaining data in an Excel sheet. Okay, Excel sheet with some BV script and something like that. So they wanted to go. It's quite uh, it was like kind of a dream project for them to move everything to cloud. Obviously, it's not as easy as it sounds, because in cloud you have to also make sure that other applications are functioning well, not just you go with one application and other applications are left out or not communicating. So the plan was that if I can go next. So yeah, so they had a separate payroll system, separate HR system, mostly on the bill by them in their company. It was not on cloud. So we had to replace that both of them with Workday, right? So that means that the previous connections between the payroll system and budget or finance system should be removed and replaced with what we implement should, recently, which is Workday. Now that means that the previous connection that was existing should be equally more or less replaced by this connection, right? So that in itself is a big task to achieve. Then some other things like, so replace those, and also to replace this all of them, right? Because as you see that orange box come into the place of blue box before, and that means this technology or this cloud-based application itself is built on HTML5, okay? Or the data structure is different. For example, it is not exactly like a tabular data structure as previously built, maybe Oracle PL SQL based data structure. So that means you cannot just continue having the same flow as it was before. You have to exchange data differently. It cannot take the same connection as it existed. So all this study we had to do. Also keep in mind that these applications are not changing, right? It's only this application changing. So we have to understand how can we produce the similar data that they want, these systems want, like bank system or document management system, etc., while using our cloud application. So obviously, we had to transform the cloud application data into their formats. Okay, so this is what basically we had to do. So that's where the integration concepts comes in, because we are integrating the data. Now, these are the few types of file, or let's say data communication between applications, data integration. Through different kinds of file, we can transfer the data or exchange data, okay, which is asynchronous transaction, because we are sending the data, but we are kind of not receiving any response, or we don't know. After we send and forget, right? So we send the data by this different kind of files, and when you start working in a company, you will very well learn and know about this kind of files, because it's very, let's say, our daily work and a day-to-day basis, we have to deal with this kind of files. um, but these are mainly transferring data from one system to another, right? Because these are some common format that both systems kind of understand and can transfer data with. um, but these are asynchronous. We don't know what happened after we send the data. While there is a second mode of integration, which is API. Okay, so this is more on demand and more in use today, because these are application programming interfaces, or let's say web services. The term web service means that you are asking the systems to perform some actions by themselves. You're not really doing something manually, or entering something manually. It's already taken care by the process that is done by this API. Okay, there are mainly two types of APIs. I think some of you might already know, but it's a REST API and SOAP API. Okay, so REST API is representational state transfer, and SOAP is simple object access protocol. So basically, the main difference is that this is like a protocol, and this is more like a as the name suggests, it's state transfer. So you are basically asking the server, or the server for some information with a simple request, and it gives you some information back. Okay, or you can ask them to perform some other actions, and it will do it. So what it does is, you are basically a bit independent with web services, because previously in files you send the data, and someone would still need to perform some actions, right? With the web services, it's more automated and more easy in terms of automating process. And yeah, you are essentially saying is that, for example, in this, right, it's a public web service. Okay. What you're saying here is in the request. So as you see, both has a common thing, which is request as a response and a response. You are saying in the request, give me the temperature in Celsius converted to Fahrenheit. Okay. And as a response, you're giving it, it's giving it back to you, the response, the result. Okay. So it's more synchronous. It's two-way communication. It's not just one way. Similarly, for REST, you send the only thing that you're doing here is you're sending an URL request. You see, you are writing no code here in the request. For SOAP, you are doing some code, but for REST, you are just sending a request, and in the URL, you are saying, send me the my manager information. Okay, and that's all you're saying here. I mean, it's a Microsoft API you can see in this website, but it's just that. And then the server understand that all the user is asking is for his or her current user's manager, and this is the response you're getting. You know, the manager's information, the phone number, the name, the job title, etc. So this is more on demand today. It's more on trend. It's lightweight. Um, it's quite easy to learn, and you'd see like this is quite business, human readable kind of language also, because in previous days, if you write C++ code or even Visual Basic codes, it's very, I mean, it doesn't tell you anything much. You have to build the program or the solution itself in order to then process something, input or output. Here, it's all built in, and the API does is the exchanging of data with some simple commands, right? And in fact, there are things going further. You can even do programming, a small query on programming on the URL. So what you are essentially saying is on the URL, you are passing all the information. You don't have to write a code. Just pass on the URL, all the information that you need over the internet, HTTPS, and that's it. And it gives you back the response. Okay. Of course, I'm talking about the consumption part of the API. We are not using the API. We are not building the API. Okay, we are using the built APIs to perform some business operation, like getting the manager name or whatever. You can also build them, but that is more into the, if you remember, PaaS part, which is platform as a service. So there you are actually going to build an application. I am mostly talking from the software as a service. So all I need is information, and I don't have to build anything much on this. These two are very useful tool to access this kind of web service. So Postman is for accessing the REST web services, and SOAP UI is for SOAP web services. And you can find a lot of tutorials to learn about them in those websites. Okay. I think we already talked about this. So it's really a request and response model. So basically, even knowingly or unknowingly, you're using APIs every day, on your phone. All you need is to send a request. Like every time you are touching or sending a small command on each of the applications, it's actually talking through the APIs over the internet with the server and sending you back in few seconds or microseconds the response that you need, right? Let it be any application, gaming application, or anything as such. So that's the very big use of APIs, and especially it applies mostly on the mobile kind of environment, because that is the lightweight kind of service. If I go back, SOAP is mainly used for heavyweight data transfer, right? You want to send thousands and thousands of data exchange and get a response. Mainly it can be used for that. JSON or REST API, which is used by, JSON is the JavaScript object notation. So this is the language, as you can see on the screen. It exchange, and it's preferably small pieces of information, like just a click or sending a request or things like that. It's a real time. It can exchange data real time. So that's what when you use a phone application, it's just giving you and back real time applications, real time data, right? In matter of seconds. So that's this more or less on a high level API. I think yeah. So the coming back to the hot skills now. I mean, there are many more things in the industry today that are still evolving, and you'll there are endless number of things that you can learn and get familiar with, especially from cloud perspective. Like in the SaaS, for example, in SaaS model itself, there are hundreds of opportunities that you can learn. Same with PaaS and IaaS type of services. But overall, I would say API programming, API programming concepts, web services, cloud security, etc. Obviously, JavaScript, those are very native programming languages. So if you are experienced with that, that always helps. Then XML. So now, what I'm saying here is, I think when we talk about cloud, you have to learn more about web programming or web technologies, right? Because cloud is nothing but talking or exchanging information across the internet, right? So you have to know more about web applications, web services that will take you far in your career. I mean, you can be expert in some areas um, and things like that, but that's very essential that you know more and more web technologies. Uh, and of course, as I was saying earlier, domain and business process knowledge is very important as well. Some certifications, like previously we had certifications on Oracle or Microsoft that were more on-premise based, but now there are a lot of cloud-based certifications that you can do. You can even do from third-party learning portals that I'll share in a few minutes. Yeah, so there are many things that you can look into today for cloud-based applications, and of course not to forget about the basic stuff like Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Office, because even though companies are moving fastly towards the cloud application, but still they heavily use on-premise application as well. So for that, I mean, because Excel is one of the very the basic application that most of the companies use even today. So it helps if you know Excel VB scripting, etc. And then, of course, as I said earlier, knowing the business requirement, like having a bit more consulting mindset than just a programmer mindset will help really, because before the cloud era, you were really like some people are strictly assigned to coding or development part, while the others were more talking to the business side and understanding the business requirement, and then mostly the developers or the programmers who didn't have to talk too much with the business team, unless they have to really understand something to build. But today, the line, the difference between those two roles is very thin. I mean, you might have to do same role, like multiple roles as the same person. I mean, you might have to be client facing, understanding from the customer point of view, as well as you might have to be more onto the technical side to what to implement and what exactly you have to write to implement that solutions. For example, I have been doing consulting role for about 9 to 10 years, and most of the time I felt that there is no, like, I'm not specifically assigned to one particular role. I might even have to talk to customer, or even give an opportunity if I see that a product is quite useful for the customer. If they don't understand that, but it could be useful at some point in the future, I would well try to push that to sell it to the customer. So at some point, you might also even have to wear the hat of a salesperson, not from the real sales perspective, but really to push your to understanding of the product and sell it to the customer that, hey, look, this, if you do it today, it's nice for a few years, but then this might be obsolete or might not be very flexible, so you better implement this technology, right, instead of just going ahead with I need this and this and this. So this is the kind of mindset that we'll have to have today in the IT world, and not just be restrictive to one particular role, because that helps you to grow quite faster and see the bigger picture of any IT, any organization, and you'll be even valued more because now you know a bigger picture. You know the connectivity between the connection between the business side of it and the technological side of it. So this is a very typical career path in IT industry. I mean, it doesn't have to be this always, but more or less. So you start with a developer or analyst role, you move further up as a lead developer, then team lead and project manager, and yeah, depends on organization also. Like some organization might be smaller, some organization might be too big to see the difference. Like you might spend like 5 years and still you are, let's say, doing a team lead role. It might happen. Or in some organization, you in 2 years gap you are already project manager, for example. So it all depends on organization and your performance and your you know mm, uh, willingness to learn or be expanded into that direction. So this is just an understanding of where you can go. A bit of touch upon this point. I mean, I think I didn't have enough to prepare enough on this, but I just wanted to give a quick touch on this one. It's so data science. You might have heard a lot these days. So what is data science? Data science is actually to use and then for this actually you need to be more uh, doing like a multiple background and understanding of multiple things. Like you come from a programming background as well as you are good in statistics and mathematics, and as well as you know a bit of business understanding of business processes and so on. So what exactly it is you it's more like to make sense of existing organization data in a way that it can be read and applied, and it can be used to further improvise and make better decisions in the future in an organization or in any domain, for example. The mostly in trend programming language is Python. Most of you might have already heard, and you can use Jupyter as the programming tool for this. There are many other tools in the market, but this is just one of the standard free tool. As you can see here by picture itself, you can make out that data is in itself is nothing. It doesn't make any sense to any organization. But when you make most you process the data, you do the data mining, you make try to sort the data and arrange the data and then try to make some sense out of it. That's where the data is useful, and data can become a knowledge or wisdom for the company to make decisions. And that is why data science or data scientists today is quite in demand as well. And if you have a good background of, as I said, mix of few of those things, like you are good in programming as well as mathematics and statistics, as well as you have some industry knowledge, this is a very good career path as well. As I mean, again, in this picture, not necessarily all of it has to be true, but at least some of them has to be true. Like, for example, you have to know some basic mathematic knowledge. For example, someone who never studies mathematics will definitely struggle to understand the basic concepts, or SQL, Python, data mining tools, communication and presentation skills. As I said, you have to be more not just a programmer, but also be more like a consultant, to be more be able to speak and explain yourself and make sense of data. So this is, I mean, this is quite interesting career as well. And I myself am interested to learn more about this because um, how much ever interesting cloud is, at some point you might be, unless you are interested yourself, you might be restrictive into something. So if out of your own interest, you can try to learn new things and yeah, pursue. Um, I think this is, yeah. So one last slide before I think I'll almost done. And I think I took a bit longer than usual that was planned, but yeah, the last thing, which is actually project management. I mean, any project, any company, organization will not function without project management. And obviously that's a big section of the project budget or money allocated for a project or whatever is given to project management, because for a successful driving of a project, it's definitely one of the key factor. Now, before we most of the companies used to use waterfall model. You might have studied as well. It's a sequential method in a simplistic way. You don't have to do iterations. It's a define, design, develop, test, and deploy. It's basically plan, design, develop, test, and deploy. And then if you have to do some changes, it was quite hard. You had to go back and make some change request and those kind of things. In agile process, it's quite more flexible in terms of the process itself is iterated in few sprints, and in each sprint there is like those are divided into smaller. The bigger requirement is actually subdivided into smaller requirements, and each requirement is run through a cycle of the same cycle as waterfall model, but more in an iterative way. And then those outcomes are further refined and tested to actually to finally arrive at the final outcome. Okay, so more or less this is agile method. I mean, there are many more concepts regarding that, but again, it's very simplistic approach understanding. um, DevOps on the other side, people who are more interested in app development, like who are more interested in coding and would like to do more application development um, career. You might be interested in this. I mean, you can find out this, what does those logos mean for this each phases. I have not explained enough here. You can find out. So it's basically it's like a loop, you can say that, of development, right? So agile is more iterative, and DevOps is more a bit more into that detail of the iteration. Each iteration, you can do a lot of more things than just do design, build, and test. Okay, here you can do coding, then build, test, release, deploy. I mean, you can even have a look at the piece of code that you've written, or a small application that you've developed, how it performs before you can actually release it to the let's say first iteration outcome. Okay, so that's quite interesting as well to learn. So that's about agile versus previous methodology of waterfall model. So definitely with cloud solutions and cloud computing, agile method is the new approach of project management and work with more flexibility and yeah, agile approach. Okay, I think I'm at the end of I think I have one or two more slides left. So a lot of technical discussion and a lot of industry specific discussions. I just wanted to end with some practical advice, if I can say so. And that is, never, be afraid to not to try. I mean, be afraid not to try, but never be afraid to try new things. Because you don't be don't be afraid of failure. You should always try and give it a try, and even if it doesn't happen, it's fine, but don't give up without trying. Yeah, that's the only advice I have. Be curious. I mean, it's a free world, and you should always be curious. You should always be asking questions. I mean, don't be satisfied with what you have achieved easily. I mean, perhaps in a very programming point of view, I can say, like, if you are running a program and if you have a, say, output that you need, don't be happy right after. Be more curious than being satisfied easily. Like, what more you could do? Like, why exactly this is the output that you got? Don't be uh, uh, you know satisfied easily, and keep being curious to find out more about that. um, be open to perspectives. Okay, that's most important. uh, just don't I mean, if you're working on something and if you have some pre-knowledge about that, don't be just restrictive into that. Try to be more open and ideas, even if the ideas are not what you think or your principles say, but you should still be open to them, hear them, and maybe you might find something new or interesting that you never thought about. So be always open to different perspectives and ideas. Never stereotype anything, or don't be like into the in the realm of unidirectional thinking. Be always open minded, and even challenge yourself. Like, don't be restrictive to what you have learned, and that's enough. Even today, I'm learning new things every day, because in the cloud world especially, you'll have to learn things, very new things regularly. That's one thing I think I didn't mention it enough, but you'll have to learn things. So what you learn, what I learned like a couple of years before, doesn't hold good enough today. It's a lot of things have changed. So you have to always keep learning and analyzing and even challenging yourself. And finally, I mean, don't stop learning. I mean, every day we are learning, I think. Even if you don't want, you think you are not learning, but you are learning something or the other. So try to be, try to, if you can, try to put, because now we are working, studying from home. We might have enough time to study something new. Try to put that effort, even if it's a very little effort per day. Because as you see this equation, uh, if you don't take one tiny step, and if you remain at the same place for the whole year, you remain exactly in the same place for the whole year. But if you take a tiny step, it can take you a bit further than where you are today. So this is very interesting fact. So just be, try to move yeah, from where you are always. And and then I think I'll try to share some more information. I think the slide doesn't have everything, but these are few learning portals and few software development websites, free websites. Some of them might be needing license, but you might use a free trial to either learn or develop something. So I'll let you have a look at it later. I'll send these details and some more if I have it. So I think with that, I will uh, open up for Q&A. So you can either type it on the chat, or you want to come out of the mute, or even send me an email. I'll give you my email address.
Participants, any questions?
And I have to see if...
Thank you, sir. I think in the portal which you sent us through scan, we have two questions.
Okay.
One question is, what are the biggest myths about working for an IT company?
Biggest myths.
Yes.
Um, can the participant tell me a bit more about the context? I mean, it's quite an interesting question. I'm just trying to...
Sumit Gupta. I don't know if he's, if it is from Sumit Singh. If the participant is still here, you can post the questions more clearly. No idea, sir.
What is the next question?
Our next question is, why cloud computing is costlier?
So this I can answer. So basically, cloud computing is not costlier in a bigger sense, in the sense that so previously when you implemented applications or solutions in your company, in an organization, you'd have to invest in many things, right? You have to set up the architecture, of the IT landscape. You have to buy, I mean, not buy, but you have to implement databases. You have to put team to implement those databases, servers, and write codes for maintaining each of those. Then you have to build applications. Then when you need to upgrade to some newer technologies, you also have to go through a project plan to implement those things, to engage people. So previously, before cloud application, it was even bigger cost involved and maintenance involved, and not necessarily you are standardized with the rest of the world or the market. With cloud, in some applications, maybe not all of them, but some of them are indeed uh, expensive in terms of the first subscription. But then once you are subscribed and you implement the project, the cost comparison is very, very, very low. So now if you say, you want to implement cloud, and then you go to the vendor or provider, they will give you a price and you implement that cloud at the first time, and then for the maintenance, for the upgrade, for any particular issues, for those kind of things, you don't have to pay at all. It's just based on subscription. So the answer to the question is, actually it is not that expensive compared to non-cloud applications. If you think from the overall perspective, it is just that in some cloud applications, maybe it is a bit expensive for the first time, for the first subscription, and then it's, the rest of the work is being taken care of by the provider. So it's not that expensive comparatively.
Thank you, sir. Hopefully we don't have any further questions. We have now come to the end of the session. Now
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you guide our students to do some projects?
So
on cloud only.
Okay. You mean from the
virtual support.
From the academic perspective, like from projects that they have to do in the final semester, or any normal, like any project in general?
No, you see, we may take it up as a college initiative to develop some in-house projects. Suppose, for example, we have lots of database, and when I saw your presentation, we can put it in a proper form and we can design so many things. So with the help of some teachers, if we design that, and can you support us if we want to develop?
Yeah, sure, ma'am. If you can share later some more information about that, I'd be happy to support and help what you need.
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you, Sandeep.
Yeah.
Archana, continue, ma.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Now I request Ms. Manjula Ji, Assistant Professor, Department of Electronics, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Can I start?
Yes, start.
Gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all others. I, Manjula Ji, Assistant Professor, Department of Electronics, extend my heartfelt gratitude to our guest speaker, Mr. Sandeep Nath, for taking out his time from his busy schedule, even during this pandemic, and enlightening us with your experience and knowledge. I'm sure our audience had a lot to take back from this session. Mr. Sandeep Nath, thank you very much for sharing your valuable thoughts with us. In this pandemic, we are still not aware as to when things will be back to normal. So instead of leaving everything to future, our HOD, Mrs. Gayatri Sudhi, plans ahead, keeping one thing in our mind, that learning should not stop by organizing such guest lectures. My sincere thanks to you, ma'am, for all your efforts in organizing this guest lecture. Thank you, ma'am. I would like to thank our system admin, Mr. Prakash and Mrs. Akshata Rai, for their technical support. I also extend my deepest sense of appreciation to all the staff members for your enormous cooperation in the smooth conduction of this event. Last but not the least, I thank all the participants for your active participation and patience listening. Thank you all.
There is a feedback. Manjula, please announce it.
There is a feedback link posted in the chat box. Audience, please fill the form.
Thank you, Sandeep.
Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for having me.
I felt so happy I could understand a little bit of cloud computing. I look forward more and more lectures from your side, Sandeep.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thanks everyone for joining.
Yeah, thank you.
To reach out to me if you want on LinkedIn, and yes, if you have more questions. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Can I end it?
Prakash, yeah, Prakash, if they have taken the feedback,
ma'am.
after 2-3 minutes you end it.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Prakash.
Okay, ma'am.